Ladies and gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, you are listening to the Iron Bark Podcast, and I, myself, am Epion, your host of today's show, the Iron Pork Roast Cast. Did you guys know? If you're a long-time listener of the show, you guys definitely do know that Jane Goodall, primatologist, I'm sure you all remember her, you'll probably grow up with her. She believes in Bigfoot. I've discussed this before. People were like, no, that's not what she was talking about. That's not what she means. You're misconstruing what she meant, what she meant to say. You're not getting it. You don't get it. You're stupid. You're dumb. You're a big buffoon. You're a massive idiot. You're an imbecile even. You shouldn't be talking about nature or wildlife. In fact, you should just destroy your microphone, get off the internet, and get a real job. That's what you should do, Epion, because Jane Goodall does not believe in Bigfoot. Dumbass. Well, I have an interview here. We're going to play it. And this is fair use. I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit if you think I'm just ripping it straight from some other dude's podcast who I have no idea who he is. But bless his heart, because he's asking the real hard-hitting questions. I don't think Joe Rogan's ever had Jane Goodall. That motherfucker needs Jane Goodall on the podcast. Tell you that much. Ask her some of these real fucking questions. I bet you it's going to happen if Joe sees this clip or hears this clip from this dude, not saying from my show, but like from this reel that's kind of viral, he will definitely probably try a lot harder, bigly harder. All right, I'm going to play you the clip. Just listen to this NEP. And I'll unpack it a bit afterwards, but it's something else. It's very special.
Remote regions of the world, and they were like a descendant of.
Oh, shit, I messed it up. Hold on a sec.
And they were in. If there were an undiscovered ape species, let's say they did exist, and they were in remote regions of the world, and they were like a descendant of Australopithecus or Gigantopithecus or something. Neanderthals? What kind of behaviors are...
Oh my god, I am so sorry. I am so sorry. Oh no.
An undiscovered ape species, let's say they did exist, and they were in remote regions of the world, and they were like a descendant of Australopithecus or Gigantopithecus or something. What are Neanderthals? What kind of behaviors or traits would you expect these beings to exhibit to be able to stay so hidden? Like, would they be burying their dead, living in caves? Like, how could we explain their elusiveness?
That is the secret. That is the one question. I mean, I do believe that these things exist. My strangest, I've got lots of stories with no time for them, but I was in the wild part of Ecuador, and we'd flown over forest for miles, and the people live in little communities of about 30, like the chimps, and there's nothing between, no roads, and they communicate with a hunter who will go from one little community and take messages, and it's totally wild, nowhere near civilization. So I obviously had an interpreter, and all I said was, when you see one of these hunter messengers, could you ask them? Well, I said, have you seen a monkey without a tail? No more than that. And about 2 months later, I got a reply. Three of these hunter people, said, oh, yes, we've seen a monkey without a tail. It stands about 6 foot high and walks upright.
I love that.
Can you fucking believe that shit? She's got more stories. She's got more fucking stories that she doesn't have time for, Are you kidding me? I need to know these fucking stories. The world needs to know these stories. We need to sit her down and be like, tell us the stories. Tell us all the stories. In fact, give her a week's notice and say, get all your thoughts down. I want to know all the stories. You have a lot of stories to tell. I want to hear all of them. I'm quite interested and fascinated, and I think we'll all be smarter for hearing it. We need more Jane Goodall. We need her on more podcasts. Jane, if you're listening, come on to the Ironbark podcast. We'll have you on. We'll listen to all your stories, your amazing stories, the greatest stories you've ever told. We'll listen to them all eagerly and patiently, with an open heart and an open mind. Explain their elusivity. Explain that. Well, I've talked about it before on the podcast, and my first thing is going to be, are you familiar with the golden languor? It's a small little primate. It has been studied to show that it actively avoids human contact and will make very big efforts to avoid humans. That's one ape species displaying that sort of behavior. Now, I want you to keep in mind, there's certain, bando apes or something like that? Those weren't discovered until fairly recently in human history. Well, they were probably known by locals, but they weren't like scientifically cataloged at that point. So there's been little pocket, regions of apes. Like, hold on. I know this about pandas. If you go onto Google and you type in pandas and you go to Wikipedia and you look at its like population range, it's a very, very tiny pocket. If that was in a very, very remote, dense, impossible to reach region, you would not know that pandas exist. Could the same be said for an ape species? And the answer is, well, we do have examples that we have stumbled upon, these little pockets of apes that we didn't previously know existed, but now we can confirm they do. And it's kind of a big deal. It's a very big deal. The biggest big of the biggest deals. And like, what else can we compare it to? Like, so she said there's like villages of people, very remote villages of people. So, if we were to consider people to be in the great ape family, which they are, so we do that, right? As a species, we can live very remotely and remain mostly undiscovered. Who knows? Maybe there's even more undiscovered tribes out there. Could a tribe, or I don't know what a Bigfoot would be called, a group, live very remotely in a village, similar to like how some people do? And all we're seeing on these occasional sightings of Bigfoot is sort of like a hunter or messenger between villages. What if that is the case? And this is why the ones we always see are very like fast, and they're just going for it. Maybe that's why they're the runners. They're the runners. That's why they fast. I don't know. I think that's a pretty unreal thought. It's an idea. I thought it was interesting that she kind of threw in Neanderthal. Well, what if it's a descendant of Neanderthal? It's like, whoa. See, we think of Gigantopithecus, Australopithecus, basically giant, upright standing gorillas, orangutans. You're kind of like, oh yeah, that's Bigfoot. It just died off. So you ever think of like a mammoth? You're like, oh, mammoth don't exist anymore, but they did. That's what like Gigantopithecus is. And if we had it today, we'd be like, oh, that's a Bigfoot. It's not that far of a stretch. Could a mammoth have lived up until today? Well, there's elephants, right? They're not mammoths, but they are like, very similar. Could there be Gigantopithecus Jr., which I guess you could consider an orangutan or a gorilla, but maybe it's not, and it's just like another thing out there. She's a primatologist, number one. She's the fucking GOAT. She's number one. When you want to know about apes and monkeys and all that shit, who are you gonna ask? I don't know. Like, if you could call a friend, like you could call anyone in the world. They just handed you a phone and they said, you know, we got this question. And if you answer, we'll give you $1 million. Who the fuck would you call? You would call Jane Goodall. You wouldn't call anybody else. So when I'm going to ask people about Bigfoot, I'm going to rely on what she has to say. And I don't give a fuck what an astrophysicist has to say, because he doesn't study primates. He studies the stars. If I want to know about the stars, I'll ask an astrophysicist about the stars, the sun and the moon and black holes. I'll ask them for that. But I'm not going to ask them for what's walking on Earth, because I think they study very little to what has to happen on Earth. They got their head in the clouds. They're looking to land on the moon and the stars. Very interesting stuff. Do I think Bigfoot's real? I want to believe. I'm going to go as far to say yes. But maybe not. But I think it's fun to believe in. So I'm going to go with yes, because I like fun. And I feel like I can strong man or steel man a position to create a pretty good case for it in its possibility. Not that in its actuality, because like I don't have any DNA footprints or video footage. Like no like real evidence. I have zero real evidence to actually support its actual existence. But what I do believe in is the possibility. Now, I think believing in the possibility is actually the way to go about it. Because I feel like that's where like the fun is. That's where like the math, that's where like the speculation, that's where like the thinking comes in. If you just say you believe in it, well, why? What evidence do you have? And you can go with the speculation and stuff, but I think it takes beyond more than mere speculation to truly believe in something outside of faith. And it's just kind of like, okay, now let's say if you don't believe in it. You don't believe in it. What evidence do you have? Well, I have the absence of evidence. Oh, well, how's that saying go? The absence of evidence isn't the evidence of absence. So, just means you haven't seen it yet. There's a lot of wilderness out there. A lot of uncharted territory. How much have we really looked at? You know the expression, oh, you take a cup, take it over to the ocean. You dip the cup in the water, you pull it out, you look through the cup or glass or whatever, and you look at it and you go, huh, okay, I don't see any whales in my glass. I guess there's no whales in the ocean. That's one expression. We could kind of use that similarly for the forest, that uncharted territory. And keep in mind, if it's actively trying to avoid you, it's going to be much more difficult to find. Now you're going to say, well, what about trail cams, helicopters, this, that, and the other? Well, what if it is a descendant of Neanderthal? Or what if it is actually Neanderthal? That makes even more interesting. So then it does have like real cognitive abilities to be like, oh no, I know people fly overhead, so I'm not going to be out in a field. I'm not going to get caught by this trail cam because I know where they put it. And maybe they have good sensory. Like maybe they can smell like a bear smells, right? And they're just like, oh no, I know a human's been down this path before, like blah, blah, blah. They could be like the ultimate gamesman and hunter. Like there ain't no fooling them. And they got like all the like animal senses. You're going to pull it over on them. I think worst case scenario is they take the fucking cam off the tree, right? They just boom, smash. I don't know. I guess there would be some evidence like that. But going back to the glass analogy, here's a point against me. Sometimes I like to talk my own self down. You could, in theory, sample the DNA within the water, and you could get trace amounts of DNA, and it would probably, there might be a good chance you'd be like, oh, there's a whale DNA in there. So I suppose, I don't know if you could do that with air. You could do that with like small water sources in the mountains and remote areas. I suppose if we did that, and if we came across unknown primate DNA or like some sort of like strong Neanderthal DNA that they couldn't just write off as like a person with like a larger amount of Neanderthal ancestral DNA. Maybe you could start coming to the conclusion like, there's a great ape out here. I think it's cool. I think it's an idea. I think it's worth a shot. Now, disclaimer. That interview might be entirely AI and I might be a fucking dumb. I don't think it is. It doesn't look like it, but I have been fooled before. Why, yes, how could you tell? I am a patrician of idiocracy. How could you tell? Let me just sip on my tea. Dubiously. Quite good, yes. I don't know. I think if I won the lottery, if I won like $80 million, something crazy like that, I'm telling you right now, I'd launch an actual expedition into getting environmental DNA sources from remote bodies of water. I'd have some dude in a helicopter fly me around. Land us right here. I'm going to drop bucket. Going to get us a water sample. I'm going to drop bucket. It would be little vials. It wouldn't be a bucket, but I would do that, and I would sample all of them, and I would say, tell me what mammals are in this fucking water. I want to know. I want to know everything that shit, piss, spit, cried in this fucking lake. I want to fucking know. And you tell me right fucking now, you microbiologist, you DNA engineer. I want to know. And then I want to examine the genome, and I want to construct it, and I want to build it in a lab and Colossal's laboratory, and I want to make an army of Bigfoot that would take over the world. Sometimes I go down little diatribes where you could use that as like a movie, not a reality. It'd be a dope fucking movie. Do you think they would use guns, or would they use like crossbows or like spears? What's the best Bigfoot weapon? Like just like a rock? Like a rock? Like Ludo? Like Ludo! And like all the rocks start coming. That's a badass fucking power. I wonder if you scaled, like this is from the movie Labyrinth with David Bowie and Jennifer Connelly. I wonder if you like scaled Ludo's powers up. Could he just like form actual golems to like fight from, like, you know, rock monsters? He like builds them all together. They got like legs, feet, body, and head, and they just start smashing things. I think Ludo might have untapped potential. And he's kind of a Bigfoot. But he's a cool Bigfoot. He's got like horns. He's a horny Bigfoot. You better stay away from him or you're gonna get it. You mess with the bull, you're gonna get the horns. Oh yeah, a cup of coffee in the big time, yeah. A little Macho Man Randy Savage never hurt anybody, especially while listening to the Iron Bark podcast. I'll tell you that much right now. Well, folks, I don't even know if I want to dive into my content creation for this week. It's some nice pictures. It's some lovely pictures. You should check it out instead of me telling you. I'm at Nature's Epion on X. It's a beautiful account to follow. It's a wonderful account, actually. Nobody's really following me anymore, which is fine. I'm quite happy doing the podcast and gaining a few views and listeners here and there. It's doing great on the Spotify. People love the Spotify, actually. Episode 89, folks. We've made it to episode 89. Next week will be 90. We'll be in the 10 stretch back to 100. I wonder, I'm hoping like 100 is some big momentous occasion where there's some sort of leap and bound in my ratings, as you would call them, or views. But I think it will just be just like any other episode. Off without a hitch. Actually, some of them have kind of popped off here and there, but off without a hitch. I want to bring Tommy and Scott back on. I don't know if that'll happen. They seem pretty busy these days. But what I do think, I want to have like a decent guest on. Like a big name or something. Hey, you want to be on the 100th episode of this podcast you never heard of before, bro? You want to be on it, yeah? Think about all the exposure you'll get. Think about it. Thinka. Okay. We can't end it there because that's too creepy. We're going to end it off talking about my content. Beep, 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 beep. Oh, sweet. I got 71 members in my community. 71 members in the nature and wildlife community. Wildlife Wednesday got a nice beaver video. It's up there. Go check it out. I got it on multiple stuff. I got it on YouTube as well. And it's on my Insta Slam. Here's something I said today, I think. I wish X had photosphere and panorama integration. It would just be a cool, neat little feature. I also wish it had video libraries and like galleries for photos so you could have your work viewed. I think it'd be great. Oh, a robin laid a nest in my backyard. It's in my back deck underneath it. Yep. So that's been quite lovely. We topped up the feeders. Picture of a mountain looks pretty good. Pretty good, actually. Fantastic Friday. Last Friday was Fantastic Friday. It was fantastic. It's to raise awareness for, what is it called? Elasmombrachii, a subclass of cartilaginous fish. Those are the coolest fish. Cartilaginous. Cartilaginous. Okay, cartilage? It's basically they got a bunch of that fucking shit instead of bones. And those are basically your sharks, rays, skates, and sawfish. Cartilaginous. I'm going to go with that last one I just said. I can't repeat it. So this day was created by Ruth Musgrave of Whale Times. Yeah, so Fantastic Friday. I'm going to say what I just wrote. I'm just going to write what I say. I'm going to say what I wrote. These animals sometimes get an overly bad reputation or stigmatized. Which isn't to say they aren't capable of causing harm or aren't dangerous. They most certainly can be and are. Just sometimes there's a bit of an eradication sentiment that's maybe a bit too extreme. We just have to remind ourselves of the respect for the danger these animals possess, so that we can remain safe and share a coexistence. That was Fantastic Friday. Colossal has the entire genome and vital stem cells for a thylacine. Very interesting. Another post, and it seemed to have done weirdly well. It spiked up randomly throughout the week. The Rocky Mountain should have its own flag, perhaps even its own tourism currency. This one got some really weird attention just randomly. People that don't follow me liked it and reposted it. And usually after 48 hours, things die down. This randomly came up in the week. Anyway, May 8th was World Donkey Day. Some people don't realize it, but the donkeys are actually unsung heroes of the farm. They're very vigilant protectors and successfully defeat coyotes. And just some cool pictures of me by the river. And that takes us back to the last podcast. All right, folks. That's it. That's it for this week's Powder. The podcast. The podtroduction. This is the end of the podcast. This is the very end. This is the end.